Released in 1963, starring Rod Taylor and Tippi Hedren in her big screen debut, this Alfred Hitchcock-directed horror film split both critics and fans alike. In order to achieve a clear and realistic look with over 3,000 real birds mixed in with mechanical ones, Hitchcock utilized multiple studios and special effects artists, including Iwerks with Walt Disney Studios. This was for his skills with sodium vapor process, which garnered him an Academy Award nomination for visual effects. Today on You've Never Seen It, we're talking The Birds. Welcome to You've Never Seen It, an audio podcast where I am on a mission to never hear these four words again. I am your host, Allison Salamone, and joining me today for this episode is the meme queen herself, Jen Kempe. Hi, Jen.
Hi, thanks for having me on. I'm very excited. I have been listening to the episodes and I just love this project. So I was like, I want to be a part of it. So I was really excited.
You're so nice. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, it's been super. You know, you can't go wrong when you just ask people to talk about something that they love, because why not? It makes my job a lot easier.
Yeah, especially in this kind of space, like people are very passionate about the things that they both love and hate to an extent. But we're going to focus on the positives with this one. But yeah, and like everybody, there's no way that everyone has seen every single movie of all time, unless you're like William Bibiani or something. So like it's so there's always going to be some holes, and it's always fun. Like I know some people, there's that connotation behind the you've never seen it, like it's like accusatory of where have you been, living under a rock and everything. But I'm always really excited. I'm like, that means you get to like experience one of my favorite films for the first time at a different time of your life and everything. So it's always interesting to hear everyone's perspective of what they're bringing to the table when they're going into a film, and I just think it's really cool. So yeah,
and I've been wanting to dive into Hitchcock just in general. So that's becoming more of a involved movie watcher rather than like a casual movie watcher. So and because you hear about him and you know what he's done, he's done Psycho, you know about The Birds, you know about all the like hundreds of films that you know about, but you just don't realize just how revolutionary he is until you watch it. Like you can read about it, but once you watch and you start deep diving and digging into, you know, how this was done and how that was done, it's mind-blowing just how revolutionary he was as a director, even if he was potentially a creep, but you know.
Allegedly. A little sketchy in some areas, but he definitely had some types that he's interested in. So.
He had his types, and he would, you know, but it's fine. We'll get to that. We'll see where that goes. But first of all, so today your choice for the show was The Bird. So I got to know why. Like, why this movie?
Like, honestly, I'm, as you can tell, I'm a big movie buff. So I always have tried to like go out of my way and see pretty much, like, I will watch anything. I'm a big AMC Stubbs A-list sponsor. I'm like, I just will go and watch whatever is out there, using up my free passes a week. Like, so it doesn't matter. Like, am I going to go see Clifford the Big Red Dog? Yes, I will. All by myself. On a matinee with a lot of children. So I will see anything.
On Dolby because I can.
On Dolby because that's the best. But yeah, like I went through a phase, honestly, where during college I had like a co-op job internship kind of situation where I was working at a library. And to all you people out there that are all about the streaming and saving money and everything, go visit your local library, okay? Because that is really where my like in-depth dive into movies started, because it's free. Like libraries, they will go and get whatever you're looking for, and they will have some of the more classic kind of films like this one that you don't really find on streaming services. So yeah, I've like just honestly started going down lists and everything, trying to see all these things that I hadn't seen. The Birds is not one of them. The Birds, I watched that very early on. It's always been a favorite. But yeah, Hitchcock for me, he is like a classic director that I just always like it. Like, I know you had a tweet a while ago before you started this of watching Rear Window the first time. And I was one of the first people that was like, I am so excited.
You were.
Because
And that
Yeah,
thing ended up going viral. It took me
yeah.
3 days to finally learn that I can
Oh yeah,
mute
you can
something.
mute something. Yeah,
But
like you
like
will kill your battery if you don't do that. Yeah.
it didn't stop. I was like, okay, people apparently like there was no hashtags in it. It just
Yeah.
like went. You mentioned Rear Window, and it
Yeah.
was
That
just
is, yeah, Rear Window is my number 2 movie of all time, and I absolutely adore it. And I remember seeing it when I was younger, and it just kind of blew me away because,
mhm.
as you will see, like through if you go down Hitchcock's filmography, all of his films, even though he's known as the master of suspense, he like dips into all different genres. He's actually really good at comedy. He's really good at romance. Like
Yeah.
it's really interesting to see. But yeah, I picked The Birds because clearly you already did Rear Window. So I was like, well, if I can't do Rear Window, I want to do The Birds. And it's really because like I wanted to pick something on the list. You have a lot of really great films on the list that I know a lot of people really, really want to talk about.
Yeah.
But I always like to go back a little bit further and pick something a little more classic before the 80s that I want to kind of highlight because there tend to be people around now that it's like, oh, I'm of a certain age. I don't really need to go back because it gets a little problematic and the themes don't speak to today. And I'm like, that's not true across the board. Like my sister is one of those people that she's like, I just don't want to watch movies in black and white anymore. I'm like, you make me so sad. Why are we related?
There's no
So I
Clerks
know.
filmed in black and white. Like,
I know. So I'm like, oh, you don't get to see Clerks. You don't get to see Sin City. So like, it's like, I don't know.
right.
So it's, yeah. So I like to always try to champion older films saying like, you can't see where things are now if you haven't like looked back at how they started because The Birds, as we're going to talk about it, is a major influence for a lot of films, like even nowadays.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's just like Hitchcock was a master of the craft and everything, and he really explored the space in terms of cinematography and themes and suspense, and like it's really interesting to see a movie filmed all the way back in 1963 that could still come out today and like it probably would be shot similarly. So like
be just
the
as
CGI
terrifying.
might be a little bit better, but yeah, like it's honestly his techniques are, especially for the time, are really interesting to see.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And this movie is absolutely horrifying. So I watched it. I had a pretty open morning with work. So I was like, perfect. Let's watch
go.
The Birds. I was like, it's gonna fill the time. I'll have a little bit left over to kind of digest, take some notes. Don't recommend watching it that way. 0 out of 10. Recommend watching it before you have to go do other things.
Oh yeah, if you have to go out in the world where the birds are, they'll come find you now.
There's a giant oak tree in front of our house, and I'm just like, what? Huh? Oh,
check it.
Oh god.
Check it.
Oh god. They're coming. It's happening. But watching it, I'd always heard about talking with my dad. My dad's so funny with all of these things because he knows all about it. Like he's saw the Hitchcock movies. He has so much knowledge with it. And when I sent to like my family chat, I'm watching The Birds, my dad just went, "Oh, that's scary. Why would you do that?
Why are you doing this to yourself?
What are you doing? Because it's very scary." And then like as I'm watching it and we're getting towards the end, I sent the text back and I was like, dude, it was fucking scary.
Yeah.
Like, that's, out of all the Hitchcocks that because Hitchcock is known for, like I said, a lot of things, the suspense, the thriller, and horror. But out of the horror films, the 2 that I've now seen are Psycho and now this one. And this one
very
is
different.
Very different. Absolutely horrifying. Like, so scary. And like, he messed with children. Like that.
Yes.
That
very
that
much
was crazy.
Like, not even just like thematically, like there were real birds that they used to film these
on children.
So I'm sure these kids are traumatized. I'd love to really go down the rabbit hole of like, where are they now?
Yeah.
I know I would be like, I can't look at a gull anymore. Like, so.
It's so crazy because like, I mean, I talk about him a lot because he's one of my favorite directors, but back when like Carpenter was filming and went to go release Assault on Precinct 13, the studio was like, you can't release this. You shot it. You shot and killed a child. And he was like, oh, okay, I'll take it out. And then he never did. And then
they won't notice.
Exactly. Like 10 years before that, we're getting Alfred Hitchcock just having birds dive bombing, real birds, just like right on children. I was like, and not just once, multiple times. There was a birthday party.
The birthday party one is because the girl is wearing the blindfold.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was like, that is gonna be so scary for that child. I was like, please, someone go help her take off the blindfold.
Yeah, help her. Go get her. What is this? Oh my gosh. I didn't realize how many actual birds were used in this. Like you think with like the blue screen or technology that they had back
Yeah, it's
then.
like a weird yellow screen, I think is what
Yeah.
they call it. It's like a different
Yeah,
technology,
they've
but
like
yeah.
mixed, yeah, but like the fact that there's like, I think somewhere Alfred Hitchcock was quoted of using over 3,200 real birds
Yeah,
in this
it's a lot.
filming, like trained birds. And what he said,
Yeah.
he said,
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, because they do like they went out of their way to like they had like bird catchers that like went and caught gulls and stuff at like San Francisco dump and like they were supposedly training them, air quotes, training them. But then at the same time, like as they're filming certain scenes, they're like, it doesn't feel like it's enough. So we need like some more. So they had like send like the PA out to the pet stores and buy some more
oh my
sparrows to throw in
God.
there. So it's like we have maybe half trained, another half that are not, and then there's also like you can every once in a while when you really like watch this movie over and over again, you'll start seeing like, oh, that one's a like stuff, that's a model, that
Yeah.
one's a robot. There's a couple of mechanical ones. My favorite is at the birthday party. There's a particular girl that's in a little blue dress and she's so cute and she's got like the little white knee socks and the perfect little Mary Jane black shoes.
Yeah.
And they clearly put like a mechanical bird on her back that's like pecking at her neck. And they clearly told her, it's like, okay, you can't knock this thing off. It's very expensive. So she's just kind of like shaking her little arms and kicking her little legs, but like very clearly not trying to knock this bird off. But that one always kills me. I'm like, oh no,
That one, yeah.
Mary Jane. Yeah.
That poor little girl. She's just sitting there throwing a temper tantrum on the
Yeah.
ground.
Yay,
As
the birds ruined the party. Yeah.
Wham, boo birds. This, yeah. It's so wild, the amount of like children that are getting attacked over adults.
It's like his favorite thing. It's so funny because I don't think he really, well, actually that's not true. I was going to say he doesn't usually deal with kids a lot in his films, but going back to, I always mess up which one it is, but I think it's Sabotage, not Saboteur. Who knows? I'd have to look it up again.
Someone will correct me.
Someone will look it up.
It'll be fine.
I think it's Sabotage, where he literally blows up a child.
Oh wow!
And that it's a fantastic scene. But yeah, it's like, so every once in a while, I'm like, we're gonna talk about it. Like he might have some weird tendencies, but it's like it seems like he really enjoyed terrorizing these children in this film. And I was like, I don't know, maybe it's because it's like, oh, he doesn't usually have a lot of kids running around, but he's like, I'm gonna really go after it for this.
Yeah. And watching like the slow breakdown between like Melanie and Kathy and just what was done with makeup, and you're watching her from when they went and got her from the school teacher's house.
Oh my God, yes.
And go back home before before the birds started attacking the house, and just seeing it almost feels like you're watching in real time the color drain from her face to where she says, Melanie, I'm sick, or I'm sick, Melanie. And then she goes and does her and throws up. The way that makeup was done and how well it was done was absolutely astounding.
And yeah, Veronica Cartwright is the little girl who, like, she's been in a lot of things, but other than this, she, like, I know her from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the 70s version. She has like that iconic scene with Donald Sutherland going kind of thing. But she like nails. Like she only gets a couple of scenes, but every single one she absolutely nails. When she does the "I'm sick" thing, like you can like it looks like a real panic attack, honestly. And she also has the scene like after Annie is attacked, where they show up to Annie's house thinking everything's gonna be great, and she's lying there dead on the stairs. And Melanie has the great line of like, "Where's Kathy?" Oh my, like oh my God, like it's weird that she remembered about Kathy being a problem instead of her brother.
Right,
it's a little weird. But Kathy like kind of like just tells you exactly what happened, and she paints this picture of Annie being swarmed by the birds, and like she saved the girl and everything. And like that scene always gets me. I'm like, oh, poor Kathy, poor Annie. I love Annie, so I'm like, Annie's so freaking cool. I'm like, I was like, Mitch chose wrong. Annie's fantastic.
He sure did. And that's what it's so. When the movie was starting and how it builds up, it's definitely a slow build.
Yeah.
But it's the whole idea of just birds are just, I mean, thrown in from the beginning. Like you're right there. And I'm just like, and I remember like, cause again, I know that birds are going to attack. That's about all I know. So I'm like, is it happening now? Is that no?
Exactly.
No? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
she has it now.
that was such a good choice because, like, honestly, I was rewatching it earlier today, getting ready, and I was like, like, if they had no promotion, if they had changed the title of the film, it would have been a very different reaction, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's like if they just called it like Bodega Bay,
Yeah.
and you didn't see any post, if you just put it on, you had no idea, you would have been like probably changed the channel, honestly.
Yeah.
Because it starts off at like as a very kind of generic 60s like screwball rom-com kind of situation of honestly two people that not exactly likable, like the it's like that one of those weird relationships of like
I care
the hate love thing.
I care nothing about if these two people end up together. Like she seems like a terrible person.
Oh yeah.
He seems like a skeezy lawyer. Like I have zero invested in what's going to happen in this relationship until the shit starts hitting the fan.
But yeah, because the way that they promote it is the birds, and like it is Hitchcock. You're watching, going at any time it's going to happen. Yeah, and it does have this layer of like, oh my god, at any moment things are going to go down. And like the very first attack when Melanie just gets swooped out of nowhere, because like you don't see it coming, because it's like, oh, they're doing a really rom-com-y kind of thing of like, oh, I dropped off the little birds and now we're doing like a race over to the other side, and then suddenly like, oh, they're doing like, Mitch has a very like, oh, I see you came to see me kind of look on his face, and suddenly it's like, okay, no romance, swoop, let's kill some people. Yeah. So it's really interesting to see. But yeah, like at the same time, it's so weird that like thinking about it, it's like the whole process, the entire plot is started because Melanie is such a prankster that she went to a bird shop to buy a bird and teach it how to swear at her very prim aunt. And I'm like, that's just such a weird starting point to go from. And she is like a full-on creeper. She's like clearly like Patriot Act kind of person. Yeah. I'm just going to figure out where this guy is and totally stalk him and like go, haha, I don't understand her motivations, because he like kind of was calling her on a real shit of, oh, you're such a prankster. She's like, no, I'm not. Here's a prank for you.
Let me go play. Let me go to the I would not. I would have been like, oh, I'll just go in and leave the birds and he can come home to dead birds. Yeah. That'll be even more of a prank. Like, I'm not going to go drive an hour and a half to a city. Like, it's a lot of work. Like, I get we need to like
a lot of work.
Figure it out.
Clearly, she has a lot of time in her day. So,
this all could have been done in San Francisco. They didn't need to go to another coastal city. Yeah. Could have been saved us some time. But, what do I know? I'm not Alfred Hitchcock. I didn't make it.
I also thought it was really presumptuous because he was going to buy the lovebirds for Kathy's birthday, and then just like he was like, whatever, I'll just go to another store or something. But like, I was like, what if he went and got another pair of lovebirds, and now Kathy's stuck with 4 lovebirds, and I'm sure Lydia would freaking love that. Yeah. So I was like, this is a very odd thing, because like in the back of my mind, I'm like, what did he end up actually getting her for? Yeah.
Like, what did you get, bitch? Nothing. Yeah. Nothing.
I brought you this new friend. Like, that's really what he did. And she just showed up. So.
And then, dumb. I mean, I understand Kathy loves her lovebirds, but like, girl, don't you see what's going on? They haven't done anything because they're in their cage. They can't get out. Guarantee you they're going for your eyeballs.
Yeah. Like, I honestly, when I saw this when I was very young and everything, and like early on, I was like, okay, clearly, because a major part of this movie is people discussing, it's like, what's the motivation for the birds? Why are they attacking? And when I'm little, I'm like, well, clearly these 2 lovebirds are like the generals, and they are like giving people information from the inside. And it's like, so because like the ending is so ambiguous of like, wait, why are we not attacking now? And I'm like, it's because they have the lovebirds, and they're like, it's a hostage situation. We can't attack the people that have the lovebird generals. So yeah, it's such a weird little thing. But yeah, like I do like seeing like everyone's interpretations of like what exactly is going on. I'm like, it doesn't really matter. And that's at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, it's really about the paranoia and what you do in a situation that you're not prepared for. So it's very interesting to see.
Yes. And I love it's so wild to see like an actual like zombie apocalypse movie taking place, but birds. Like you just remove the zombies for the birds, and it ends and that's how it ends, like with them just driving away.
I absolutely agree with you. This is like the protocol for a zombie film. Like Night of the Living Dead is after this. I will say that The Birds probably was a major influence on the Night of the Living Dead. It's a very similar situation. And like honestly, Walking Dead protocols, like they learned all that stuff from The Birds. They have more time, so they can problem solve. Like honestly, this movie, like it lasts over maybe I think a weekend.
Right.
So it's very realistic in the way that people won't really think it's a problem yet, won't really think about what do we need to do to be okay, because honestly, they're birds. If you had just like grabbed some quilts and like put it over your head to go to a car, you'd probably
be okay.
But it's more the fact of like people like we're kind of living it right now, of people tend to like not trust what other people say.
Yeah.
And then not take things seriously that are actually major threats.
That's how a global pandemic happened. That we're still stuck in 3 years later.
It's not a birdemic. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe we would have handled it better if it was birds, but I don't
Probably know. Not. Probably be the exact same thing. The birds are not attacking. That's what
We'd
it
have
would
people
be.
siding with the birds. I don't know.
We'd have bird deniers.
I mean, I know there's a lot of people that say birds aren't real. So yeah.
You're right. The same people that think the earth is flat. There goes all my conspiracy theorists.
Yep.
Sorry. Alienated like half my audience. It's fine. I'm sorry, Jesse. We're also losing.
Hashtag the lovebirds did it. There you
go. The lovebirds did it. I'm going to make that trending on Twitter. But kind of going back into like this film, just kind of in general, and Hitchcock in general, talking about, you know, him being just a creative genius. Like we talked about the idea of like yellow screen, because the majority of these special effects he shopped to other studios to do because of how wanting to make, because when they tried it all on the blue screen, you could still see things flapping and like the blue pieces would pop in here and there. And I mean, as much as like Alfred Hitchcock seems like a pretty egotistical a-hole with some of the things he's done.
He knows what he wants.
He knows what he wants. So he's smart enough to know it's not working with me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was like that whole it's called sodium vapor process. Yeah. Wikipedia explains it.
At Walt Disney Studios. There you
which
go.
Which is also crazy. Yeah. I read that. I was like, oh, well, which again, I mean, probably at the time made sense because it was being utilized all the time.
Yeah, because essentially, like this technology is very similar to what they would do in like the animation of like, oh, you have like kind of just keep layering, like backgrounds on top of like the side characters, the main character kind of thing. So yeah, it makes sense. And like I always love going back and seeing these kind of things. Like I like the birds, and like even going back to like the Ghostbusters. Like that to me looks much more interesting than a lot of the CGI nowadays, because it doesn't trick your brain, and that makes it work even better, because it's like, you know that there's something inherently wrong with what you're seeing, and that just kind of adds to the terror. So I really like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Oob Iwerks is what his name is. Is the guy who gets credited with all of that with Walt Disney Studios in this movie. I think that was the only Academy Award nomination for this movie was for visual effects for him specifically. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, I get it.
Yeah, because honestly, like on paper, this is like a very inherently campy kind of idea.
Yeah.
And given to any other kind of director, especially at the time, it would not be considered, like has made the status of like being one of the best horror movies of all time. Mm-hmm. And it is because of the way that Hitchcock frames a lot of like, particularly the back half and everything. But yeah, it's like when you stop and think about it, it's pretty silly, but it still works. Like there was a Saturday Night Live sketch, I think a couple of years ago, where John Mulaney was the host, and it's Kate McKinnon is Tippi Hedren, and she's doing the scene in the phone booth. And it is very good. Like, it's funny because it's like she's talking to like John Mulaney is the cop and everything. And it's like, oh, like what's the problem, ma'am? It's like, birds. It's birds. He's like, did you just whisper birds? Is that what you're talking about? Like birds? And it's like, yes, he's got a knife. Like they're trying to make it sound a little bit more intense. But at the same time, like, if you've ever been stuck in a room with the bird, it's pretty terrifying. Yeah. Like when you're outside, it doesn't seem, a lot of the scenes where they're being attacked outside, it does feel a little over the top and everything, because they're essentially just throwing gulls at the back of people, and they're all I can think of is someone who was like a shot putter in high school. Yes. Like their job on set is just like returning. They're just chucking birds, like a bird chucker, trying to like grab stuff and like close windows and shutters and everything. They're just, I have a feeling they probably like pasted people with like fish paste or something so that the birds want to nip at them.
Wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know. I would assume that that's what it is because at the time standards for safety are very low.
Very low. That's why we have movies now. That's why movies that are out now, like Nope.
You get that little Humane Society thing and no animals were harmed. I'm pretty sure some animals were harmed in this film just because if you put me, like, even trained actors, if they know that like they're supposed to be trained birds, you're still gonna freak out a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, like particularly like the scene when they have the gulls don't scare me. The gulls don't scare me, but the scene with the sparrows.
Oh my God.
They're just sitting around in the living room having tea.
Yes.
And suddenly you see it's the one, she sees one little sparrow sitting in front of the fireplace and just goes, Mitch. And they just swarm in because that is a very realistic kind of thing. I'm like, that could very much happen.
Those are very much not letters from Hogwarts at all.
It's weird. The smaller the bird, it feels like the more intense the scene is because I'm like, when you get to that kind of situation, there's nothing you can do. It's just they're everywhere.
And they're so fast. Like a smaller bird feels faster and more dangerous and more pointy than a big bird.
Gulls are sloppy. They're very clumsy. I'm like, I've seen enough that I'm like on the boardwalk and be like, just get out of here kind of thing. But when it's a little sparrow, I'm like, all they do all day is fly around and peck at stuff. So and it's like, I am not a tree. I am a fleshy meat bag. So yeah, like I'm very, very desirable.
No, thank you. It's like, I did one of those, like, I watched this and it gave me a little PTSD back to, like, I went to a zoo a couple years ago and did one of those things where you hold the nectar cup and all the birds.
I will never hold the nectar cup. I will walk through. I will not hold the nectar cup.
I will never do it again. I will never. They came in and I'm just like, oh, there they are. Okay.
That's nice.
I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. And then, like, as soon as it was all gone, I booked it. Like, I was, and even my husband looked at me. He was like, "That's a bad idea, wasn't it?" I was like, yeah. Never again.
No, I will go through those things because my family now, like my parents are retired and they have become like birders. Like they have become hardcore birders. They know all the names and it's like, oh my God. So like I do enjoy seeing all the different birds because they get excited about it. But yeah, when I go through those things when they're like, oh, you want to hold a nectar cup or whatever, I'm like, I will not because I do not know what my reaction is going to be in the heat of the moment. And I don't want some zookeeper yelling at me for hitting their damn bird. So yeah, I'm like, I'm just going to
I don't want to get fined is what.
Like, I don't want to have to pay for a very expensive tropical bird.
It was the most wild because they just, as soon as you hold that cup up, zero fucks given.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I will, oh my God, never again. And especially now after watching this movie, never again.
Now you know the consequences.
And every single scene when he was so smart with the scene where like they're having all the birds are attacking the house. Yes. And they make it so you can't hear anything happening inside the home because they're wanting you to feel that this is just so big and so loud was probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yes. I love that. Yeah. Cause like, I feel like people don't realize while you're watching, like I'm one of those people that when you're a filmmaker, you start noticing all those aspect ratios and things like that. I'm like, I just enjoy them. I don't notice that stuff.
Yeah.
But this is a movie where I actually do notice of like, there is no musical score for this film.
Yeah.
It is all about the silences and the tension. And then those really weird, like synthesized bird calls, screams and everything. So yeah, when they have that scene and they're all just like trying to get away from something they can't even see. And like, they're like almost rolling on the walls, trying to figure out where the hell do I go to be safe? And the answer is there isn't one.
Nowhere.
So yeah, like I love like watching that scene again. I was like this big influence. I was like, I would love to see a double feature of this and Signs. Because Signs does a very similar situation where you're just like the camera even focuses on a wall. Because it's like, you're just listening at this point and you're imagining, you're not seeing something happen. You're just thinking about the horrors outside.
Yeah.
So it's a very effective way of portraying something that, again, like they can't really film a lot of these things, like, but it's like, it's just the idea is the thing that really sets you off.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that'd be fun. And you mentioned the whole idea that there's no score for this. And it's so interesting because of last week's episode talking about Psycho, where you have a Hitchcock film where the score is just,
like a character.
It's synonymous. Yeah. It's, you can't talk Psycho without talking about the score. And now it's like you can't talk about the birds without talking about there not being a score, because it's, like you said, it's all just based off of those sound. Like even in the beginning when you're getting the opening credits, it's just that sound of those terrifying bird sounds. Yeah. Yeah. And then apparently, because again, it's on Wikipedia, so if it's on Wikipedia, it means it has to be true. That apparently the way that the whole, if you are watching like the title cards, when the names are going away, it's meant to look like a crow or a raven is pecking away.
Oh, that's amazing.
Right? I'm like, oh, now I gotta go back and watch it. But
I gotta go back and watch that now. I
don't watch it because I want nightmares again. It was a lot. That movie, that was not a great way to start my day yesterday. I was like, it's gonna have a happy ending.
Just paranoid for the rest of the day. Yeah.
Birds. Every time we go out, I work with kids and we take them outside once a day, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna die.
Oh, so you have to like relive that whole scene
every day,
of having to leave school. Like we just said, there's no score, but there's one freaking song that is the most obnoxious song I have ever heard
in my entire life,
and it's punctuated around a really cool scene, but at the same time, I'm like, it just freaks me out, and it's so funny because like people don't remember and everything. This is the iconic shot. I would say this is probably the most iconic set piece of the film, is when Melanie is going to the school to pick up Kathy, and she's waiting outside for her to come out, and there's one of those really old school jungle gyms behind her, and it's the way that the crows come in of like you would think that she'd be a little bit more on alert. There've already been a couple of attacks. You'd think that she'd be on her guard, but no, she's having her little smoking break, and you see one first crow come in and land, and in your mind, you like, I would love to have seen this in a theater and hear people go kind of like, oh no, and because you get like about 5 of them behind her, and then you're seeing her, but it's so funny because she's kind of reacting already, like she's like freaking out a little bit. But to me, because she's not aware of the crows behind her, I'm like, she's freaking out to this fucking song.
Right.
It is so weird. It's like, what are you teaching these children? What is this nonsense song with no words?
That's why the birds were attacking, because they were.
I believe it's because of the song. Yeah, 100%. They earned that one. Like, Annie's cool, but she doesn't seem like a very good teacher if this is what she's teaching the kids.
Exactly.
But then you see that tracking shot of Melanie finally notices one crow. Yeah, it lands, and there's like 100 behind her that she didn't hear, even though I'm like, crows are kind of loud.
They're
I feel like
quiet.
You should have heard that one, Melanie. But
come on, Melanie.
Yeah, but that's that's an amazing shot. I love the way that's set up for suspense. That's very master suspense moment.
Oh, definitely. That kind of goes into like my next idea, because we've been talking about different things that we've popped everything. Top 3. Well, I mean, we've kind of probably, but if you had to like rank your top 3 moments with this movie, what would they be?
Honestly, I always come back to the Bodega Bay, like central Main Street kind of thing of the restaurant.
Yeah.
Because that whole situation of, at this point, this is after the kids have been attacked at the school, and Melanie's coming in to kind of like calling Daddy. We must call Daddy, because Daddy has all the connections. And like people are overhearing the situation. And it is a nice little microcosm of what would happen in this kind of situation of like, you have Melanie who has experienced the thing, but nobody believes her, mostly because it's a woman and she's not from around here. This is a very much a small town kind of situation of we don't trust the outsiders kind of thing.
Especially when they're women.
Especially when they're women. She's very pretty as well, and she's not to be taken seriously. But yeah, you have like the classic bartender trope. You have the very stereotypical Irish drunk at the bar that lives on that school.
It's the end of days. That was my terrible Irish accent.
The old woman who happens to be an ornithological expert on all things birds and is like correcting Melanie on the phone, which always drives me crazy. And then you have this the woman with her children who's just there to be hysterical woman, and the guy who's just like, all birds should die, and like it's just like, it's so fantastic because that scene has been used so often in these kind of like disaster film where people of all different walks of life have suddenly been like thrust into a very traumatic kind of thing and have to deal with each other while also dealing with the situation. So I always love that. And like to this day, me and like my mom and everything always use the line of right after that, like they have a very debate about the birds essentially. And then they go out and the birds like just wreak havoc on the town by swooping just the right people, of hitting like a guy filling up his car with gas and then hitting another guy that happens to be lighting a cigarette. So then it just explodes and it's just insane. And I love that scene so much. And she runs back into the restaurant with Mitch after being in the glass case of emotion of the phone booth, which she had no reason to go in that phone booth. There's a lot of situations with Melanie of there was no reason for you to do that. But she's like one of the quintessential people of don't go in there for any kind of horror.
The epitome.
So I'm like, you're always going to have one of those. And Melanie's pretty good at it because you're like, you kind of want her to do that because I'm like, Melanie's so stupid. Melanie, you have no idea what you're doing.
Melanie, you hear the birds behind the door in your upstairs.
You were in a building, Melanie. Like, you were fine. So she's just a very curious kind of person. So she's just going to do that. But yeah, they go back into the restaurant and there's that hysterical mother. And she has that.
They have slaps the shit out of her.
The shot of her is so amazing. I have no idea if this woman has ever done anything again, but she always, like, to this day, me and my mother have the line of, I think you're the cause of all this. I think you're evil, evil. And she just slaps her. And Melanie's like, I'm so done with this town. It's so great. So I absolutely love that entire Bodega Bay bizarre disaster is like probably my favorite thing. But it's really hard because rewatching the things, I was like, there's so many fantastic set pieces that honestly could, if they were in other movies, like that could be an iconic one on its own. And it's like, no, it's the whole back half. It's like one after another is so fantastic. When you see Lydia going to visit the other farmer and you get that eye situation, just the buildup of that, of no sound and everything, and seeing her reaction, she's not even able to like
scream,
make
like she
a
just
single sound. Yeah, because I love the way that one's framed because she's entering the house. It's a nice little farm. There's nothing going to be wrong. And she's walking through the kitchen and you have like a wide shot with Lydia kind of walking in, looking around for the guy. And you suddenly zoom in on her face, looking at, there's a row of those hanging kind of teacups.
Yeah.
And they're broken. And it's like, we know it's like, that's birds. But she's like, that's odd. And then she walks down the hallway and the like chaos of like bird disaster room. And it zooms in like boom, boom, boom. Yes. On the guy's eyes being pecked out. Like that is probably the most horrific shot of the film.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's mostly because of the way that she sells it, of just complete and utter horror running down the hallway of like, I can't even, like that is very much the I can't even kind of gif that I would use. So yeah, like there's so much. I love it.
Oh my God. Those
everyone could have a different answer because there's just so many options.
Absolutely. I think another one that would be absolutely in my top eight, that one with the eyes being pecked out, and because that's the first time that you're seeing someone like that's the one person you're seeing dead. Yeah. And that's the person you're getting, because you don't see what Annie looks like, you just see that she was killed by how she's laying there. But like you don't actually get to see the horror of what these birds are doing until that moment, and that's that quintessential Alfred Hitchcock just horror, like that's your oh shit moment, right? Like the oh shit moment for Hitchcock with Psycho is when he opens the curtain and starts stabbing her in the shower, like
and the chair turn. Like it's like, oh God,
that's exactly what it reminded me of. Seeing his face like that was the chair turn in Psycho, which we don't even need to go. I'm sleeping just fine.
Like, shouldn't have done these back to back. Should not have done these.
I should not have done the amount of movies that I am watching right now. I need to have I'm gonna do like a Disney month. Film. I gotta figure something out. People are gonna start sending me psychiatrist recommendations, I think, after they hear this set of episodes. Like, are you okay? Yeah. Do you blink twice if you need help? Like, just
this is when you needed the When Harry Met Sally. You got to do it afterwards. After this,
I made a huge mistake. Is what's happening with all of it. But so there was one award that for Golden Globe, because we got to talk about the Tippi Hedren of it all. The Tippy of it all. She got a Golden Globe along with a couple of others, because back then they did like best newcomer. So she did receive that for this film. She was obviously known for working with Hitchcock all for however, I think he signed her to like a 7-year contract.
Yeah, he did, but I think she only ended up doing this and freaking Marnie, which is also rough. Like both films, like I feel like she got the short end of the stick of all of his starlets. So,
she sure did.
Yeah,
she sure did. But she was the one who spoke out about him being raunchy. Which you didn't do back then. You didn't. How dare a woman
how dare you
have a voice in the 60s? Which is why, like, that always sits in the back of my head watching these movies, because you go into Rear Window and the Grace Kelly of it all and how she looks. And, like, he loved a beautiful blonde leading lady. Very much so.
Absolutely had a type. And he knew what people wanted. And yeah, like, it is different, though, the way that he frames Grace Kelly, because he done so many options with her.
Yeah.
Compared to Tippy, because, like, with Grace, it was clear that he was like, she is like, he almost framed her as like something of like ethereal, of like she can't be touched. She is just so gorgeous, so poised and classy, and just like she's not of this world and she's above all of us kind of situation. But I always did love in Rear Window where people have pointed out it's like she starts out that way, and then as time goes on, she's becoming more of a person and more adventurous and brave in her actions and everything. And her hair starts to get a little darker. And I'm like, that's really interesting. And I'm like, did he do that on purpose? Or is it like, that's a kind of interesting thing. So yeah, if I always recommend people watching Rear Window, I will always recommend people rewatching Rear Window. So it's interesting to see. It's like, oh, is he aware of the way that he's doing that? Or is that a hairdresser, costume design kind of situation? But meanwhile, you have Tippy, and it's like, he's clearly not a big, like, this character is not someone to be admired. And it's like, let's just put her in every crazy situation we can.
Yeah.
And,
for sure.
Like, it's not like, I've seen people make the argument of like, oh, we are specifically showcasing all these people that are very, like, they have problems with each other. They're very confrontational. And it's to make you be on the side of the birds. So, like, when you get to the big Bodega Bay bash scene, you're like, get them, let's go.
Yeah. They don't make these people be very good people. Other than, like, the only people I feel bad for getting attacked were the children, because they didn't deserve it.
Yeah, it's really, it's all about Kathy. I'm like, everyone protect Kathy. But then at the same time, she's pulling the lovebirds around. So I'm like, Kathy, read the room. Like, you can't be doing that.
I understand you're 11, but, like, do you see your house right now?
Yeah.
Like, do you
not see Melanie the wrapped yard? Up very like silly with the gauze and everything? I do, like, one of my favorite Tippy Hedren moments is right at the end after she's completely in shock.
Yeah.
And they're going out to the car trying to escape. Just no. Like, I'm like, that is accurate. That is what I would do. So I'm like, thank you, Tippy.
That was actually about to be like that was about to be my next moment of, like, one of my top moments in this movie. Is because, again, you're just watching the slow descent into just pure madness. And you kind of see, but what I also think is really done really well is watching the relationship between Melanie and Mrs. Brenner and how that grows. I remember, like, when she's trying to bring her tea after she walked in on the no-eyed dead guy, and even Mrs. Brenner is going, she's like, I don't even know if I like you, but my son does. And, like, she's just so honest about it. And then in the end, when they go to drive away, Tippy Hedren's just, like, laying on her, looking up, smiling, and she's, you know, petting her hair and it's like, maybe they get along now.
They do give a little snippet into Melanie of, like, oh, they have a lovely conversation between her and Mitch in front of a beautiful matte painting. That I always love that scene where, like, they're walking up what is clearly a man-made dune in front of a matte painting, and it's like, they could have just launched into the dialogue, but instead they have, like, the two of them walk up for 10 minutes, and he like specifically points out behind, like, yes, look at this lovely matte painting behind us before they're going to start talking about their lives.
Yeah.
And Melanie reveals, it's like, oh yeah, her mother left her when she was little, so she never really had that. So she's like, I cannot fathom this relationship you have with your mother, which is already, like, very problematic.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, she's like, towards the end, it starts to be like, become something of, hey, maybe I actually want this. Like, in no way did she think during this very elaborate prank that she was going to become, like, an actual family member and enjoy having a little sister that completely adores her out of nowhere. I think Kathy, is looking at her like she's a Barbie doll, essentially, which she became a Barbie doll later on, which is fantastic. But yeah, like, so she just completely got overwhelmed by this family. And yeah, it's very interesting to see. And I do love the relationships in it. And it's very interesting because, like, at the time, even nowadays, for a lot of horror movies, it's mostly like there's one girl kind of situation. And with this one, it's the women are the ones that are really driving most of the action. Like, they're the ones making decisions. They're the ones that are actually, like, having confrontations. Mitch is kind of there to hammer a nail every once in a while and
do the man work.
Yeah,
of
do
the
the man
six.
work in his very, very large cargo pants at the time. I was like, what is that fashion? Like, it is so fantastic. It's like a foot wide cargo pant on the side as he's just nailing up the doors and everything. And
Yeah.
yeah, he at no point do I feel like he's capable in any of the film.
No.
Like he's just never quite all the way there.
No.
And it's very interesting to see. But yeah, I absolutely love the character of Lydia, and just she's very interesting because there's this weird lead into it of when Melanie is like meeting Annie, and Annie's kind of giving her like the insider info of like, okay, just in case you didn't pick up on the vibe, I used to be you, essentially, of
Right.
I liked Mitch, I came home, Lydia did not take to me. But the way that it's framed in the dialogue is very Hitchcockian, of it's very roundabout, of they're kind of saying the same thing, but not exactly. It's like, I just want to be very quippy. But Lydia is always very straightforward in the way that she speaks, and it's very interesting because she's like, I just don't want to be left alone. And it's like, yeah, she's lost her husband, and it's like her son is apparently successful.
Apparently,
apparently, I don't know how.
Shady defense lawyer in San Francisco.
He does have that lawyer quality of it, like he's very sardonic, and like I could see him making very weird arguments. Yeah. They do actually go into like a case at one point, and it's written off as a joke because it is Hitchcock. He does like making jokes,
right?
Of like Kathy calls people hoods. She's like he
oh my god, when that word came out, I was like, oh, I don't think we can't use that anymore. I don't think that's appropriate.
And because she's like, well, he's doing a case where the husband shot the wife in the head 6 times.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wouldn't even 2 is excessive. And Mitch is like, Melanie's like, why would someone do that? And he's like, he was watching TV. She changed the channel. Like that, like it's a joke. And it's like so weird. I'm like, that was a very odd little joke to throw in here. But Hitchcock loves his comedy. He loves his dark humor. So
Hitchcock he sure does love his dark comedy.
I feel like he has a very, like, if you met him, like clearly he's got some weird personality traits, and he probably would be like offending you every other word of like, what did you just say?
I feel like he's one of those people who's always been just old. And like I have an aunt who lives in Texas who is in her 80s, and she straight up tells you she does not give she does not care. She wouldn't curse. She does not care. Just like she just doesn't care. She just says what comes to mind, whatever comes to mind. And if your feelings are hurt, like, not my problem. Why not? And I'm like, I love you for this, Aunt Jeanette. And it's done in such a, because it's one of those things where you can say, she's Southern girl, so you can say whatever you want as long as you follow. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Just like that. Just like that. I feel like Lydia picked up on that. And I feel like that's like an Alfred. That's definitely like what Hitchcock would be in this day and age. Like he would just say, he would use the word hoods. And he would
probably even be like, if someone reacted, he'd be like, "What?
What do you mean?
Like, what do you want?
It's the English language. Like, what is it?" When that word came out of Kathy's mouth, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we can use that.
Don't like that. No, thank you, ma'am. No, thank you. But other than that, I think that in this, I know why people haven't gone out of their way to remake it, but they also kind of have, like you talking about, you have signs, you have creature features that have all these zombie movies. It's like, why keep you have the same trope? Like, do we really need to modernize this movie?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's more they just take, like you said, like I think this could be qualified as a zombie movie, and especially because like they even mention it in the film when they're having that debate about what's going on and everything, of there was an actual event that happened like a couple years before the thing, where it essentially was zombie birds. Of they ate some bad algae and
which wasn't known at the time.
Town. So I'm like, I qualify this as a zombie movie. So yeah, I think because like if you tried to do this nowadays without this being a property already, people would be like, really, birds? So I think that would be the reaction. But the quality of the paranoia and just the claustrophobia of it, like that is something that is timeless in this kind of zombie genre, creature feature thriller kind of situation. So it did, like, there were other thrillers before, but like it did break a lot of ground in terms of particularly the zombie genre. I think this is the
Well,
grandfather
because
of
you
the zombie
also
genre.
get you get in there at towards the end when they're trying to leave, where he goes into
Yeah,
in their garage and turns on the radio. The same thing you get in any classic
pretty
zombie
much
flick.
any. Yeah,
Yeah. And how, like, honestly, the only thing I could think of watching them as they were trying to walk out with the birds just standing around is the ending of World War Z, where as long as
yes,
no one is fucking with these zombies, they just go into
yep,
this state of catatonic. They just stay there. So
yeah.
they were able to develop, like, cordon off these sleeper cities, and the rest of the world went on. But, like, that's
Mhm.
literally all I'm thinking about is these birds just standing there in, like, this catatonic state because it's not time to attack, or no one's
Yeah,
messed with
they're like,
one
we
of
have
them
to wait
yet.
for the orders from the lovebirds. We're
From
not ready to go yet. Yeah, hold the
yeah,
line.
yeah. But as they're driving away, it's like, where are they headed to? Because, like, now there's, like,
Yeah,
reports of
yeah, they
small
were
attacks
saying
in San
other
Francisco.
places.
So is this now
Yeah,
an all over? Like, again, it's that whole thing. Like, is it all over? Is it just here? What's gonna
yeah.
happen? And then it ends. And literally, when it ended, I went, "What the
Wait,
fuck?"
it's like I need more
I was like,
information.
"That's it? Like, that's how we're ending it? Like, the birds win? Or is
The
that how
birds
we're,
win,
is that what
kind
this?
of.
All right, cool. It's
Yeah,
like,
kind of.
it's like
Because
we
yeah,
destroyed everything.
like I do love the hysterical women. Like I was like, she has a point of like all this stuff started happening when Melanie showed up. So it's like maybe you are the cause of all this. But then as they have the little interactions with other people, it's like, oh, the fisherman was like, yeah, like a week ago, one of my boats got attacked. And I'm like, yeah, but I was like, I've lived on a summer coastal town. I'm like, birds attack the boats. They know where
All
the
the
fish
time.
are.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know if we can count that one. But it's like, but then they are saying like, oh, people they had like from the school attack, one of the kids had to go to a hospital in another town, and they were saying there was a situation over there as well. And it's like, oh, it's very interesting. So like the birds are specifically cutting down communications because it's like they don't have telephones anymore, but they do have power, and then they do lose power. And there's an excellent like squawky death sound when that happens, when the lights go out. And I'm like, that was definitely a kamikaze bird that was like, for the cause,
Yes.
I'm going to take out the power for the entire town. But yeah, but like there was an actual different ending that they wanted to do that I think
really?
if this was made today, they would have done this. It's still ambiguous, but not as ambiguous as this one of they originally wanted, there was a little bit more of the script that they decided it was just too expensive to do it. And it was, they were going to get in the car, start driving, and they were going to start getting to San Francisco and start going over the classic iconic bridge. And you were going to see birds all over the bridge and going into the town. So going, oh shit, it's already here kind of thing. So that would have been a little bit more of, this is a global kind of situation now. But it was just too expensive. So you don't really need it. It would have been cool. I think if it was made today, you definitely would have got that bumper. That would feel very Planet of the Apes kind of reaction at the end of like, it's already here kind of thing. So yeah, like, but I do like the ending. Like it is very different. I do like when movies go out of their way to like try to twist you out of like, oh, it's not what you expected, and try to do something that's a little bit more low key, like you said with World War Z. And like honestly, no spoilers, but like when I was watching this again, I was like, oh, I kind of want to go see Nope again. There are a lot of parallels to Nope right now that I would absolutely recommend.
I was literally just thinking that.
It's fantastic.
100%.
It's a very similar kind of situation in terms of you are being faced with something that you are clearly not aware of what exactly going on, and you have to kind of just piece it together as you go along. Are you correct? I don't know, but it's like I'm just going to be working off these theories that I have, and hopefully one of them will be right. So like I would recommend this being a double feature of Birds and Nope. 100%. I think it's very interesting. So
100%. And unfortunately, it looks like they try to do The Birds 2 as a TV movie, and that did not go over well.
Yeah. I think it was a made-for-TV movie. I think Tippi Hedren even shows up in it, but she's not Melanie.
Yes. No, she's not. So she plays someone named Helen, which I'm like, I feel like
good for Helen. Okay. So yeah, I like it's very. It would be very easy to turn this into like a Sci-Fi Channel kind of movie of the week kind of situation.
Easily. I mean, 1994.
With all that Sharktopus, Sharknado kind of situation. So, but at the same time, it's like there is a certain level of camp and enjoyment to be had with those kind of things. So I'm like, I wouldn't be particularly opposed to it, but it's clearly not in the same realm as the original. So not. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing a remake, reboot, whatever, like just to see if anyone had anything new to be brought to the table. You'd probably be bringing in way more species of birds,
eagles
to deal with. You'd be seeing global stuff. I know, even like the cop had that reaction of like, what? So like predatory birds, like eagles, hawks, falcons, talons and stuff. They're like, no, they were gulls and sparrows. And he's like, come on, people.
Gulls and sparrows.
It's like,
come on.
We could, if we just like went down to like the high school and put on like a football helmet and the gear, we could just totally, you would have that scene. That was what the new movie would be people fighting back against the birds. The guy at the bar that was like, we should kill them all. He would be leading the charge. They'd probably do some kind of weird birds explode or electrify everybody kind of thing. But so it would be way over the top, but at the same time, I would still love the hell out of it. Like, I do love creature feature movies. Like, I'm really like Lake Placid. I absolutely adore.
Yeah.
Like the director of Tremors actually said, he was like, I took a lot of theories from the birds. It's like it's a similar kind of situation. Small town being attacked by something that you don't quite understand, and it's like it shouldn't be as devastating as it is, but because you're so cut off and people are already wrapped up in their own stuff, that they don't quite address problems until they're overwhelming you.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Like my whole life, my anxiety.
Yeah, that's me in a nutshell. So if I just ignore the bird, maybe it'll go away and I don't have to deal with it.
That's why I made friends on the internet in my mid-30s. Just an allegory.
That's my biography. That's my biography right there. There you go.
Making friends on the internet in my mid-30s. I love it. We've gone full circle, and I'm going to go cry myself to sleep tonight, realizing just how lonely and crippling my anxiety is.
5 in the morning when the birds start tweeting. That's the thing.
Right. Oh, amazing. Well, at this point, I think we're going to go into, marking it off the letterbox list. I loved it. I don't think it's my favorite Hitchcock at this point. With the 4 that I've seen. It's definitely not my favorite.
What are the official 4 that you've seen? I know you've seen Rear Window and you just did Psycho.
I saw right after I watched Rear Window, I watched Rope. So I've seen
that one too.
Yeah, so I've seen Rear Window.
These are all very different.
Very different, and it shows his range as a director. Even like you said, like even between Psycho and The Birds and the horror factors with
and that was the turnaround. It's like to go from Psycho to The Birds. I'm like, that is such a shift change. Of like, if you've tried to see a director do that nowadays, of like, I did this hardcore horror drama and now I'm going to do a creature feature. People are like, what are you doing? You're selling yourself out or whatever. So
and he's just like,
very interesting.
Hitchcock's like,
I'm Hitchcock. I do what I want. So,
Hitchcock, motherfucker. What are you going to do? Oh, you didn't know? But while it may not be the full 5 stars, I'm definitely going 4.5. Like it is
fantastic.
So good. I think with what it brought and what it did for the horror genre or the creature feature kind of horror genre of it versus the Scream Queen serial killer slasher horror. It's just, he just keeps creating just these juggernauts that continue to this day. It's like, movies are what they are because of Alfred Hitchcock. Theaters are what they are because of Alfred Hitchcock. It almost feels like, He
may have been a creeper, but he knew his shit.
He sure did. Fucking asshole. God damn it. He'd be one of those that, I would never, like, if in this day and age, like, would hardly watch. If he was doing that now, it'd be a completely different conversation. And it's not to excuse it, and it's not to, but it's just one of those things where that was the golden age of Hollywood. He wasn't the only one doing it either.
Yes.
Right? He wasn't the only person exploiting people.
I don't want to say I dismiss things like that, but I'm like, one of my throwbacks is like, just go different time. It's like
100%.
You have to accept, like, if you're going to go down the rabbit hole of studying films across the board through the decades and stuff, you have to accept that sometimes you just have to put yourself in the mindset of it's a different time.
100%.
Different themes, different perspectives, particularly different ways that studios handled things. So they weren't getting the same immediate feedback from the general population that you would get. They're not terminally online with all of their actors and everything. So like you would only see the weird little fan magazine kind of things of they will show you what they want you to see. Mm-hmm. Whereas nowadays
there was no wide releases
and what they don't want you to see. So
and the way that films were even distributed. There's no wide releases. There's no like the person in the small town in Oklahoma isn't getting, you know, the film for The Birds, or, you know, like
they're not getting Marcel the Shellless Shoes on. It's very
God. Neither is half the other country, and that's also
my regular theater doesn't have it. I have to go further to go see it. I'm definitely gonna do it, but I haven't done it yet.
The AMC that we go to finally got it. But we were driving out to like Disney Springs to go see it. God, that movie's fantastic. Mine
got flooded with freaking Minions and now Super Pets and freaking the freaking Paws of Fury movie that has inexplicably has a subtitle as if I'm going to confuse with another movie of The Legend of Hank. So yeah, that unfortunately took over my theater. So I haven't seen Marcel the Shell yet, but I'm very excited to see it. So
he's adorable.
As you can tell, I see anything. So I probably will see freaking Super Pets and Minions, even though I despise them. I will still go.
I'm still gonna see it because I can. Awesome. Well, Jen,
I like my hate to be accurate. That's the thing. I like to know why I hate things, so I will watch it.
Fair enough. It's like, if I'm going to hate it, I'm going to give you a reason why I hate it, whether you agree or disagree. But this is why. Well, before we end everything and get out of here, Jen, do you got anything going on? Where can people find you?
No, I got nothing going on. I'm so boring now. My whole life was the Schmodown, and it's come crashing down. No, I'm around like you. I am a terminally online person. So between streaming movies, going to AMC, you can see me on Twitter at JK Meme Queen. I have a letterbox. I never use it because I'm lazy. I used to say I have Letterboxd and I don't use it because it's strategy of you won't know what I'm watching for Schmodown. But no, it's just I'm lazy. The quarantine situation completely blew my mind in terms of like doing anything productive. So I think the last thing I have on my Letterboxd is like it looks like I gave up on cinema after watching the remake of Charlie's Angels, because I think that's the last thing that I posted.
There you go.
And then I was like, I'm done. So yeah, like, but I'm on Twitter a lot. That is like the one social media that I use because it's very sardonic and sarcastic, and you just throw things out into the void and hope that someone says something back to you. So that's what I do. But I'm around, and I love like these kind of movie podcasts where you just get to talk about something you love with someone that's just fun. And I absolutely adore you. And this is an adorable
adore
podcast,
you.
So yeah,
you will be back for sure. No worries.
I will. See, that was the thing when you gave me the list. I'm like, I could do any of these, but I was like, I'm gonna pick this one.
That's literally everyone's like every single person's been like, can I also do what?
Yeah,
like
I know this is something that's gonna appeal to a lot of people. So clearly you're gonna have a really big lineup. So I'm like, I'm gonna be conservative and I'll pick one. I'll pick one that I don't think anyone else is going to want to pick. So I'm going to pick one.
Meanwhile, Moose was like, yo, I'll get Lomas on The Burbs, and then I'm going to do Office Space, and then I want to do...
I would have been like, can I be on The Burbs too? I love The Burbs. Oh my God.
That was definitely a movie. It was wild.
That one's really hard to come in late into the game, honestly, because people who want to talk about The Burbs are all about it. And if you're just walking, it's like a cult. And it's a movie about cults, so it kind of works. But
exactly.
It's very zany. So that is something that's really hard to digest if you haven't been watching it since you were little. But meanwhile, The Birds is a classic for a reason. So I think it's easier to jump into.
Yes. Oh, definitely. And all of you listening, if you're enjoying what you're hearing, please subscribe, rate, and review Flick and Reel on whatever audio platform you're listening to us on right now. If you're watching or listening to this on YouTube, please make sure to hit that subscribe, like, and comment with your thoughts on The Birds, along with any of our other previous films discussed. Make sure you also hit the little bell for notifications anytime we have new content drop. You can follow the show on Twitter at NeverSeenItFNR, and you can follow me at Allison Salamone. And until next time, my friends, be safe, and let's go watch some movies. See ya!